tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. It's a good question. I'll just start with the question, and then we can, based on this, continue with the Dhamma talk for tonight. This is very similar to the theme of the Ajahn Chah's memorial. And one of the reading we did this morning was about how Ajahn Chah encouraged people to reflect on the nature of change, and that if we see it from a correct perspective, Dhamma perspective, our suffering and stress is a lesson, is to not seeing clearly that we suffer. So then we have to remember going back over and over again. You're suffering, there's something you're not seeing clearly, something you're missing, some attachment somewhere. So our challenge when we do suffer is to investigate, what is it that you're not seeing clearly? And it's usually the three characteristics: impermanence, instability, and dependability, anicca, or stressed, we mistake suffering for happiness, and what is happiness for suffering. We're going to talk more about that later. And not self, takes us to be something permanent as well. And the question tonight is, how can we overcome the fear of change or uncertainty? And that is something that I think each and every one of us face, something that brings up the feeling of anxiety, and part of it because it's programmed into our DNA. Obviously as an animal, a being, our physical response is to protect the body. So much of our instinct is to protect this body of ours. And while it works when you're a cave person running around, it's sometimes the fear factor into the protection can overdo and causes a lot more anxiety than the fear itself. And especially, most of you can reflect, the last 2 years, it's been full of changes. And as you look around, and a lot of people say it's brought a large amount of worry, anxieties, and mental disease in a lot of people, a lot of counseling, because the world as we know it came to a grinding halt. And everything we took for granted is no longer possible. Traveling, hugging people, touching things. Now, the mask is the new normal. Not the most comfortable thing, but hopefully as human beings, we can learn to adapt and to grow with it. And but the pandemic shows is that it's drastic. It shows that change is always there. It just highlighted the nature of change. That what we thought was permanent, that these big buildings that we have and these hospitals, this great knowledge that we accumulated for the last 50 years, it's going to somehow make things much more stable, make things much more predictable. And to a certain extent, we have some of that. But the nature of reality hasn't changed. That things are unpredictable. Things change. There's always change constantly going on the background. Even solid buildings we take to be solid, it's constantly cracking somewhere. Things are moving. And one day it will no longer be there. Same with this beautiful salad. It's built 40 years ago. wood, and it's going through deterioration, moment by moment, day by day. We don't see it yet until there's a crack appears, becomes bigger and bigger until the whole thing falls apart. But as Dhamma practitioner, I hope we are constantly reminding ourselves that change is the nature of all things. That is through accepting, to reflecting over and over about the nature of changes of body, internally and externally, other people's body, also our internal emotional state, mental state, that also changes moment to moment, and other people. That when we meet with change, hopefully we can adapt and learn from it to grow. This idea of resilience, that we all face obstacles, we all face challenges, but what do we do with that determines whether we are happy or whether we suffer from it. And sometimes holding on to things, wanting things to be a different way, that's where suffering comes from. Suffering is not seeing clearly that things are constantly changing, that there's nothing that we can really hold on to. All we can do is accept, to learn from the situation, and to adapt, to make things, to ease the stress in the mind. It is the fighting with things. Like the Buddha said, that's the cause of suffering. Not getting what you want, and being separate what you love. Those are the two constant that as humans we're constantly facing. And hopefully, as practitioner, I'm always learn to reflect inward. How do I grow from this challenge, grow from these obstacles? And we do have that ability to adapt and to change, physically and mentally. And that's what going to lessening our suffering. That's what is going to allow us to live a life of peace and harmony. How do I be more harmonious with the things around me? How do I be more peaceful with the society around us? And as Ajahn was always saying over and over again that things are the way they are through causes and conditions. Like the reading this morning, it's about right. Whatever is happening in our life, it's a great reflection and mantra we keep saying to ourselves. It's just right. Things are the way they are. Because they arise already in the present moment, and they can't be any other way. So it's the fighting, I don't want this, that causes stress and suffering. Or I want something else that causes tension and anxiety in us. We're willing to accept, okay, this is the way things are. How do I make this work? Remind people, mantra. How do I not make a problem out of this? Not make a problem out of wearing a mask. Not make a problem out of the heat or the humidity. Not make a problem out of the aches and pains in our body. But learn to adapt, to grow with it. And that's the challenge that each and every one of us have to take up, to learn, to live with our body as the way it is. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And that's why I was trying to emphasize to people that the skills you learn in meditation are the same skills that you need to live a productive, happy, harmonious life. Ability to be present and to accept what's happening. Really to make peace. Let's remind people, we don't meditate to get something, to get samadhi, to get a jhana. to be still, to get rid of or to get rid of something, to get rid of the thoughts, get rid of my angry mind, get rid of my distracted mind. We meditate really to learn to accept, to understand this body and mind. Saying people, what things do you think about when you have nothing really to do this weekend? When you're sitting watching prayer, where's your mind go? Does it go to the dessert that we had this morning? Go to your comfortable bed that you're missing, you have to sleep on this hard bed that we have here. Go to your state-of-the-art entertainment center that you got during COVID. Where does your mind go to? It goes to your partner, your family, your kids, your job. One more things you need to do when you get back tomorrow or Monday. Where's your mind go? That's our attachment. It shows, oh, okay. This is what I think. This is what I think about. That's where the mind goes. It's not to judge it. So oh, that's interesting. Oh, these things come up over and over again. So much of the journey is about understanding ourselves. With understanding, wisdom arises. And it's a causal connection. It's not something that you will yourself to it. So hopefully we're just providing a condition, the causes, the environment for peace and stillness to happen. Quiet bush plains, must be restraint in the speech. You're staying away from your worldly kind of environment that would trigger the busy mind. Go into a quiet place in the bush. Hopefully the mind starts to slow down by itself. And we see clearly, where is it? How is it that we're making suffering for ourselves and others through not understanding clearly? Ajahn Chah's, kind of teaching, it's, the thing I loved about it. It is very simple, very direct, and very practical. So it says over and over again, whatever comes up, you just put into the three categories. Anicca, instability, suffering, stress, dukkha, or anatta. But so much of his emphasis is always on anicca, which is things unstable, unreliable. A lot of times we translate it's like permanent, impermanent, but it's so much more than that. It's like, nothing that we see around us, internally or externally, is really 100% reliable. Right? We take this body, yeah, sure, it looks like it's our body. We kind of control it most of the time. Lift your arm when you want to. But to the more important stuff, when it's sick, can you tell it not to get sick? No. When things go wrong, when it has low energy, can you will yourself? Not really. Can't tell it not to get old, not to get sick. So we have roughly, so we don't have total control. So we have to kind of constantly remind ourselves, this body isn't totally reliable. When you most need it, you usually get sick. Ready to go on a holiday, and of course comes out with a cold. Or with this COVID is great. It's circling around, you never know. You take your vaccine, you take your booster, you wear your mask. Is it going to guarantee you don't get it? No. Just don't know. So it allows us to be open, not to be afraid, but to accept, yes, reality of having a body is going to get sick from time to time. No matter how many vaccines you take, how many vitamins, you wash your hand every 5 minutes, still no guarantee. But that's the world we live in. There are no guarantees. You would have said over and over again. Having been born in this world, We're going to meet with sickness and eventually death. But that doesn't have to be a problem. It doesn't have to be a thing for us to get anxious or depressed about. It's not that we live or die. That's an important bit from a Buddhist perspective. It's whether how are you living, and how are you relating to your eventual death, when the body passes away. You live a good life, a life that's full of virtue, a life that's full of generosity and helping others, or you live a life of just me and my pleasures, how much I can get from other people around me. And as we face the deterioration of the body, we can do it with grace and acceptance. Some, yes, we look after the body as best as we can. We take the medication, but we don't expect it to be 100% fine. We know that the body is, constantly aging, getting weaker, less energy. But that's okay. It's through acceptance that we find peace and stillness. We learn to adapt to the situation of our body as it ages. So we find strength and courage, actually, and provide a good example for people around us. The body can be sick, but the mind can be at peace, happy, still. It doesn't have to be a cause for more anxieties and worries and stress over the body. And we keep reflect on everything around us is unstable, unreliable. The body, a relationship around us, the families that we have. Eventually, people grow up, mature, have their own families. Relationships, sometimes they work out well, and sometimes they don't. That's the nature of the world. We don't hold on to things when its time is to end. So as we kind of sit here to watch the breath, like I said, we're cultivating an awareness and acceptance of the way things are. However, whatever mind states we have, we just say, yeah, this is good enough. The body can be a bit achy, that's okay, it's good enough. The mind is a bit distracted, it's still okay, that's good enough. This idea of acceptance, of gratitude, of at least you're here in the forest, in the sala, meditating, or learning about the mind. Unless we learn to release, to let go of a lot of our attachment by coming to a meditation center or monastery. And like I said, the teachings on impermanence is simple, but it's something that we can't be stressed enough. Everything that comes, keep saying ourselves, yes, unstable, unreliable. Everything that we look at, everything we think about. So it is through the acceptance of anicca, of change, that we can grow more confident. How can anxiety or more confidence and more peace, more at peace? Because you know there's nothing we can't control much. Nothing belongs to us. Nothing lasts forever. So nothing lasts forever, we can appreciate this moment that we have. We look for the good in it. We let go of the fault-finding mind that this is not good enough. Try to cultivate wholesome states when it's possible. And you would like Ajahn and like maybe the other great meditation masters. So much of their teaching, it's just an encouragement for each and every one of us. Just reflect on your own life and situation. How can I apply the Dhamma in my life in the way that helps me to bring more acceptance, more peace into my life and others? It's not something, a theoretical thing that we just think about. Ajahn is always pointing us back to our own mind and body. How are we relating to this moment? How are we relating to things around us? Are we making peace or are we fighting things? Are we making a problem or are we learning to solve it? From a Dhamma perspective, there's no such thing as a problem. Ajahn always tells his students over and over again, when there's wisdom, there's no problem. There's only a problem where we're misseeing things, not seeing clearly. We hold on to something, or are deluded by something. With true wisdom, the problem falls away. So as we, turn our mind to meditation, or turn our mind to solve our day-to-day issues, larger problems of ourselves or the world, it's good to constantly remind ourselves, yes, we do what we can, but everything is unstable and unreliable. And that's the nature of life on earth. It's the nature of the body and mind. So sickness doesn't have to be a problem. Dementia, when you forget things, that's just the nature of what happens to the body. It starts to fall apart at a certain time. That's okay. Doesn't have to be a problem. Everything is just about right. It's a great way to start to kind of grasp and attach onto things. Happiness is just happiness. Suffering is just suffering. No more, no less. So we learn to accept that. Pain is just pain. Pleasure is just pleasure. We realize our job is not to, follow the worldly way of trying to amass as much pleasure as we can and avoid as much pain as we can. Our job as practitioner is to understand the nature of these things, the nature of experience. What is pleasure feels like? What does it feel like when it ends? What does pain feels like? What it feels like when it ends? Just that much. No more, no less. So we come to a place of peace beyond pleasure and pain, happiness and suffering. We come to a place of peace of the Buddha. We can learn to accept, to be with life as it is, without preference, without running towards something or running away from anything. Perfectly peaceful in the present moment. With clear understanding of the things as they arise. So as we practice on a daily basis, to turn our mind towards the breath or the body, hopefully we're also cultivating the muscles in the mind of acceptance, of being present, of learning to adapt and to change. Learn to look at things for the way they are. know happiness, to know suffering. And we move towards a place of beyond all that, towards a place of peace of the Buddha. So I offer that for your reflection tonight.
So